and we'll see everybody start rolling in.
I had a buddy text me. He texted me this morning, right? He came from the college coaching profession, moved in the recruiting space too. And I don't know if we're live yet. If we are, I don't care. People can hear the story. But like, I even told him like it feels like pregame before you're playing your rival, right? Because the butterflies, you're excited, you're nervous. It's just that pregame warm up before the game, before kickoff. Once it kicks off, everything's great, but the build up just can be so excruciating.
Yeah. All right. Got the chat turned on. Give me a quick emoji how your afternoon's going. All right. Give it like one more minute for people to roll in. Oh, Joe. Hate to see a sad face, man.
Yeah, it's not. I was hoping for smiles. Joe, I was telling the story before, Joe. I don't know if this like helps you out from a
Ah,
perspective, but
somebody just backed out of a final. Crap. Okay. Yeah. Sad
okay,
face for that.
yeah, that's worse than my situation. I was telling Ben my wife's car had a flat before this, a couple hours before, and I tried to change it, and everything went horribly, horribly wrong. And so I was like, man, I'm kind of having a bad middle of the day, but as with everything, right? Just perspective. Like then AAA came, they fixed it, they're out the door, nothing, no problem.
Man. But I just want to say this is day 4 of the first Recruiting Growth Summit. I just want to say thank you guys for participating in this. If you're watching the replay, like watching this replay, it's been an absolute epic week. What started as a crazy idea that I had a few people like that were like Keely was like, cool, I'm down for your crazy ideas here and there, has turned into a pretty epic week. If you do know somebody that tried registering within the last 48 hours and they saw the sold out thing, I somehow broke the Hey Summit system. It is now fixed. Way more people registered than I ever thought that was going to register. So it is now fixed. So feel free to tell somebody and catch the rest of the week. Registration is back open again. So I do apologize on that. That is 100% on me for not thinking big and breaking the system. Secondly, if you want to pick up the VIP to get a copy of the replays, I just dropped that in chat. It has been an absolute epic week. I mean, I don't laugh. I know I'm kind of behind the scenes working. I'm going back and watching the replays myself. So, but yeah, I'm going to pass it over to Keely. Keely Flood is ready to wrap up the last talk of today for the Recruiting Growth Summit. So there you go, Keely.
Thank you. Let me quickly share my screen. We should all see that. So it says, first and foremost, guys, like, thank you. Thank you for spending some time out of your day with me. Also, I know Ben's always saying, hey, put some emojis in the chat. Like, let's all thank Ben, right? Talk about a phenomenal week so far. I myself have tried to be an audience member to almost every talk. There's been a few I've missed for whatever reason, but I myself intend to also go back and watch the replays. So thank you to Ben for putting on just a fantastic lineup and what I would say is pretty seamless. I know you talked about some of the hiccups behind the scenes. Most of them would not have even known because of the way he's been able to compose himself throughout this week. So kudos to you is what I say before we get into today's topic. So a little bit about me, my past before getting in the recruiting space, probably like a lot of people, stumbled across it. Prior to that, I was actually coaching college football for 5 years. And in 2015, trying to get back to Chicago where I'm from, stumbled across this recruitment industry. Someone actually reached out trying to place me somewhere else. And once I found out they got paid to help people find jobs, I wanted to learn a little bit more. And before I know it, fast forward 10 years later almost now, and I've been selling for 8 years out of the past 10 within that recruitment space. And since then, I've sold over $8 million in revenue myself. Also in the SaaS space, I also did a couple million over there. I've been top 5% for account breakers. But one of the things I wanted to make sure I harped on the most was I had an absolutely horrid start to my career, both on the recruiting side, because I did a 180. So both recruiting and then when I transitioned into the sales side, both were extremely rocky in terms of bad luck breaks, right? We've all had failed drug screens, as we just saw in the chat, right? People backing out of a final, like everything you think that could go wrong, maybe over the course of a couple of years, seemed to all happen within the first 6 months for me. And one of the things that kept me going and ultimately led to my success was having a system in place and processes in place that I could follow over and over again. Because there were times where I felt like, hey, I must be doing something terribly wrong, right? Obviously, there were some tweaks that could be made, but ultimately, we looked at it from a process standpoint. I was doing what I was trained on. I was following through. I was calling candidates for interviews. I was following up with clients. All the things that you're told to do, I was doing, and I was just having some things go in the wrong way for me. But ultimately, what it taught me with the struggles was by having that system in place, you can overcome a lot of hurdles in the long run. In the short run, it's going to feel rough, but knowing day in and day out, this is what I need to do to move the ball forward is how you then grow your book of business, how you land new clients, and ultimately is what today's topic is all about. As we see, right? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I would ask like quick little show of hands. Maybe someone can even volunteer. Like, does anyone know where that quote comes from? I'm actually lost the chat too, so I'm gonna pop it up here. So the quote comes from Ben Franklin. That is where I got it from. I've loved it. It stuck with me ever since I first read it because it ultimately is true. If you're going in with the I'll just wing it mentality, I'll just figure it out, right? You ultimately don't have a plan in place, and therefore you are planning to fail. And by having these systems and processes in place, it can allow you to grow. It can allow you to know what you're doing day in and day out, and ultimately lead to the success we're all trying to achieve in this industry. So again, how many of us wake up every morning wondering, hey, what should I be doing from a BD perspective? Who should I be reaching out to? What accounts should I be targeting? How am I going to hit my goals, right? Oh, there we go, 3 guesses. Yeah, it was Ben Franklin there, Mike. We've all had this. I've had this. There are even some days where I wake up today and I think, hey, what do I need to do in order to move the ball forward to grow my business? And it's not a great feeling to have. And I know early in my career, I had it almost every single day where I woke up thinking, how am I ever going to hit quota? How am I ever going to get to President's Club? How am I ever going to get $1 million a year? How am I ever going to get in front of the prospects? How am I getting my prospects to even listen to me? Because it can be extremely difficult. I mean, just in the US alone, I think there's 20,000 recruitment firms. If you don't have a plan in place, you're going to sound like all the rest of them. And it's going to lead to these feelings you see on your screen right now, where you wake up every morning thinking, I don't know what I should be doing. And with that, more likely not, if you're like me, it leads to a little bit of paralysis. You don't know what to do, therefore you don't do anything. Inaction occurs day in and day out. And as a result, you look back over the past quarter, let's say, as we're getting towards the end of this first quarter, you think, what did I even accomplish from a BD perspective? It's not a good feeling to have when you look back and realize I didn't really do a lot to grow my book of business, to whether that's growing within the current accounts, bringing in new clients, reactivating old accounts. The point is, like, this is the feeling you don't want to have. And a way to overcome this feeling is to wake up every day having processes in place to know this is what I need to do, this is what I need to execute on a day-to-day basis in order to win new business. So we'll start, right? Ben's been gracious enough. Him and I met months ago. We did the podcast, and I still remember one of the questions he asked was, hey, if you were to talk to a struggling organization, a struggling individual, what would be one of the biggest pieces of advice you'd give to them? And I said, get back to the basics. And there's nothing more basic than your ICP, which you might be looking at thinking, hey, I know who my ICP is, but when was the last time you really reevaluated that, right? The market a couple of years ago is not the same market it is today. Your ICP that worked a couple of years ago might not be your ICP today as well. What I love is the metaphor here. You see in that first bullet point, a plane leaving LA, heading to New York. If it's 1 degree off on its course over there, the destination will be 60 miles off target. So apply it to your ICP. Even if you're slightly off because you haven't reevaluated in a while with who your ICP is, you could be way out in left field in terms of who you're trying to get in front of and the business you're trying to win. So things like, hey, what titles are you targeting? How can you actually help these individuals? And what are the common challenges for each one of them for the verticals you support? For myself, I've sold within the scientific space, the healthcare space. Within those, right, there's a massive industries. Scientific, for example, I sold into medical device. I sold into food and beverage. I sold into pharmaceutical as well. Each one of those industries has different challenges that they're facing, whether it's from a business perspective, regulations perspective, industry trends. By knowing what are some of those things, I'm better prepared to assist my ICP if and when the time comes, they actually do need my help. So again, consider, hey, what keeps them up at night? And think beyond the hiring and filling of roles. Because ultimately, and I firmly believe this, you put the right people in the right seats, great things can happen for the team they're on, the organization they're a part of, And as a result of those roles being filled, great things happen. Companies' revenue grows. Maybe they hit their targets. Maybe they release a new product on time. Maybe they increase their patients for healthcare. It's Press Ganey. They increase their patient satisfaction scores, right? There's a lot of things that occur when you put the right people in the right seat. And by looking at my business development when I'm reaching out to these individuals beyond just, hey, I'm here to fill your roles, I'm here to actually solve some of the problems that occur as a result of this open role. It helps you set yourself apart from those that are out there simply resume shopping. They're vendors. They just want to fill roles and they move on with your day. I don't believe that's the way you're going to continue to win business moving forward. You need to build beyond the transactional relationship. You need to build as a partner with them as opposed to a vendor to them. So if you're unsure about your ICP and you work for a company, maybe you're new in your role, maybe it's been a while since you reevaluated, one of the easiest places to start is identify what your peers are doing. What are your peers doing around you that they're having success with? What is your company doing? Go and talk to those individuals, learn from them, and then adjust your ICP as a result. And if you don't know, use something like this, right? A simple breakdown in terms of the company sizes you're going after, the buyer personas, and you can fill this out. And therefore, you have a nice, clean 1 or 2 sentences that's at the bottom there of who your ICP is. Because having that laser focus allows you to ingrain yourself with their day-to-day challenges, problems, and industries. So that way you differentiate yourself from the other people that you're competing against on a day-to-day basis in the recruitment world. Now, why? Again, going back to why is the ICP so important? Would you rather be an inch deep and a mile wide, which results in spray and pray, generic messaging, can't get prospects to listen to you? I know I've been there myself. There's been times where I've gotten off course, and as a result, I'm not speaking their language. I can't get my prospects to listen to me because I sound like everybody else. I'm just a generic salesperson who's out there trying to resume shop. Versus the one with a laser focus, knowing what their challenges are, what keeps them up at night as well, and living and breathing what they do day in and day out. That allows me to create messaging. It allows me to speak to them as a peer versus somebody who's just coming in and hoping that they sign with me because of a lower rate, let's say, or because I say I have a great database or whatever, right? There's 1,000 things people say they're all generic. You don't want to be that. In the recruitment space too, as we know, there could be a large number of companies and customers that can be your ICP. I know from my experience here in the Chicagoland area, as I alluded to before, I did scientific. There were at one point probably 500 or 600 companies that could fit within my ICP bucket. And sometimes too much of a good thing is actually a bad thing. Having that many companies, spread yourself so thin. You need to have that hyper focus, and you need to understand that there are riches within the niches, right? So one of the stories I like to tell, there's a Fortune 500 company here within the Chicagoland area. It was called Medline. And I laser focused in on what were the challenges they had within the medical device space. And I knew there was opportunity there. Their headquarters were here, and everyone told me, hey, don't waste your time. We're not good at this. We only do food and beverage. I said, no, I need to make sure that I speak their language. And I was able to get in there through a small little project they had in the beginning. Fast forward a year later, I was billing them for over $500,000 year over year for 3 years straight. The only way that I was able to do that was having that hyper focus on them as an ICP and truly understanding what was happening within their industry that led to them want to actually work with me versus my competitors. And to be frank, I came at higher rates too. I know some of the competitors are in there, they came with the low rate talk, the great databases, whatever, but they didn't understand the challenges these managers were going through beyond just, hey, I'm trying to fill a role. And I was able to speak to them in a different way than they'd heard in the past, and it allowed me to stand out from everyone else. So we got our ICP. Awesome. We know who we're trying to target. As I said before, maybe we've got a list of 500 accounts, and now it's time to create a territory plan, which, to be frank, and I'll put it right here on the slide coming up, it can be boring. Territory plans aren't exactly the funnest part of the job. I know for me personally, I love going on meetings. I love talking to people. I love building relationships. I love winning business. I love making placements. What I don't love is creating a territory plan because it is pretty boring. But it is extremely important to do that because it will guide you, as going back to ICP and using that plane metaphor, it'll guide you on your path to growing your book of business. And what I always applied to it was the Pareto principle. I do firmly believe this, and as you can see on the screen now, right? The Pareto principle specifies 80% of the consequences come from 20% of the causes. Apply it to sales. It's been found to apply in multiple situations, but within sales, that basically comes down to 80% of your sales will come from 20% of your customers. So if you're like me, and you've got a list of 250, 300, 350 accounts that you've been handed to, you've been told to go after, that's a lot. And if you boil that down and said, hey, I'm going to apply this principle to it, 20% of that list will lead to me getting the success I want. That brings it down to about 50 accounts you're going after. Allows you to have a hyper focus on them and build the relationships that will drive business as a result. So again, back to the territory plan though, why it can be kind of boring. It is though the foundation for everything. And I have this picture here, right? A house being built. We all drive around. I live here in the Chicagoland area. If you're around here, I live next to a town called Naperville. Gorgeous houses everywhere you look. Multi-million-dollar mansions. They are beautiful. The thing is, though, those houses could not be built if they didn't have a strong foundation to begin with. If you are taking the time to do the boring and slow work of laying down the foundation the correct way, you can then build a mansion on top of it. If, though, you decide, hey, I'm going to cut some corners here. I'm not going to take my time on this one. I really don't want to do this. I'm not going to put a ton of focus on it. Try to build a mansion on top of it. Inevitably, that house will collapse in on itself, and you'll be left with nothing. You'll be back to rubbish, and you have to clear it away and start all over from scratch. I'll be honest, that happened to me. I did cut some corners when I started out. I didn't want to put a ton of effort in my territory plan. I wanted to just get out there, run. And I thought, hey, spray and pray, get in front of as many people as possible. Like, I'll do all these things, and who cares if my territory plan's constantly adjusting? Like, I'll win business as a result. The house came collapsing down on me. And I had to start from scratch all over again because the customers I was targeting, the ones that were winning, weren't really good customers in the first place. They didn't really fit my ICP. And when I got an opportunity to even work with them, more often than not, we didn't even come through with them because we weren't set up for success because they weren't within the areas that we could support them in. Last thing about, territory plan here, it's hard work. This is not easy by any means. This is one of those times where you're going to really slow down today so you can speed up tomorrow. You'll be more efficient as a result of this. You'll get faster at doing this process. You'll always be able to bring accounts in and out within there as you continue to learn more and more about your territory. It also helps prepare you to win as well. You see on the Patriots Super Bowl, my good friend here, Clark, hopefully he's in the chat. I'm sure if he is, he'll talk about his love of the Patriots. But a few years ago, right, they played the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. And what everyone remembers is Pete Carroll deciding to pass the ball on the 1 yard line or 2 yard line or whatever it was, instead of running the ball. And they all thought, hey, Pete Carroll, what a failure. What a terrible call. What people don't look at, though, is what the Patriots did. What they did with Malcolm Butler. They had practiced that play months prior. They had practiced it leading up to the Super Bowl as well. They knew the exact route combination that the Seahawks were going to run. And Malcolm Butler, even though he failed in practice, he was ready to make a play on it because he had seen it, because he had prepared for it, because he had practiced it. So when the time came for him to actually perform, he's able to do it at the highest level and the highest stage possible. The same applies for you when you're doing sales. When you're in front of that hiring manager, you get that one shot to win him over. Are you going to be like the Malcolm Butler? Are you going to have a laser focus? Have you had your territory plan broken down? Do you know everything about them? So if you get your shot, you're going to make it count? Or are you be like me, like I was in my career early on, spraying and praying, hoping to win them over with the charm, maybe being friendly with them and thinking they'll buy from me because they like me, because I'm a good guy. It's nice to be a good guy, don't get me wrong. I'd rather be someone that brings value and is able to be prepared and to be able to speak with my clients and my prospects to the point where they respect me. There's a couple people I see in the chat, not a big fan of the call, but I think it's a great analogy nonetheless, right? It's always talked about as a bad call, fair enough. We can't discredit the fact that the Patriots were prepared and that individual was prepared to make a play when it counted the most. ABC rankings, I'm going to get into this a little bit here in a moment, but I think it's so important when you're looking at your accounts to have them ranked by A, B, and C, because you need to have a healthy mix of all those things. I'm going to jump ahead here so we can actually walk through it together. It's actually in this column right here. We'll cover this a little bit more detail in the next slide or two. But this is what your territory plan should look like. you should have a mix of current clients, reactivates, and targets. And if you're starting out a brand new business or you're in a brand new territory, you're going to have nothing but targets on there. That's okay. What I don't want to have happen is you can have a territory plan with nothing but potentially reactivates or nothing but clients, and you're not doing any prospecting as a result of that. That can come back to hurt you later on, which we'll cover here shortly as well. One area too I want to draw attention to. Thanks. Yes, Notion. Thanks, Ben. The reactivates with people I work with, this is sometimes one of the biggest overlooked areas. And by what I consider a reactivate is anyone that you build a year ago and beyond. You have a contract in place, maybe you build them in 2022. It's been a year and a half now, haven't done any business with them. And you're wondering today, like, how am I going to hit my quota for the year? One of the first places you should go is to those reactivates, the ones you have contracts in place with, and see if you can bring in new business, even though it's technically not new because you have a contract in place, and restart that relationship. Because as we all know, one of the hardest things to do is to get a contract in place with a brand new client. So why go through all the struggle if you've got potentially 9, 10, 12 reactivates within your system? I'd start prospecting them first. And then, of course, I'd try to grow my business with my clients as well. Other things I want to point out too, as you were to fill out this document, guys, just for everyone in here, this Notion document, I appreciate the compliments. This is, if you go to my speaker page, you can grab yourself a copy of this as well. That ICP you saw in the beginning, that's in there as well. And I even included a little video on how I walk through and break down things as well for how to use the Notion document. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. But again, if you're creating this thing, going back to that house, right, the foundation we're building, we want to understand the industries you're targeting. If you were like me and you had multiple verticals you're supporting, I wanted to make sure as I created this, I had a healthy mix of those. I didn't want to have all food and beverage because I might be missing out on an opportunity in the medical device space. I didn't want to have all med device space because I might miss out on pharmaceutical. I want to have a mix of those. I want to have a mix of the size of companies because I want to look at, let's say, for example, you put together your plan and all the companies you're targeting have 5,000 employees or more. And then you go to your peers and you find out all the success they've had is within the organizations in the 500 to 2,000 employee space. Well, why would I have a territory plan so skewed to an area that we're not really good at when I should be refocusing on areas that we actually can support and we've had a lot of success with? And then competition too. I think this is, at least for me, I love knowing who is within the account. If they're already using a firm, I want to know who they're using. And I'm going to try to find out in a variety of ways to understand that, because knowing who they're working with, and as you spend more and more time in your territory, you start to pick up on what your competitors are saying. What are their pitches? What are they maybe even saying about you? What they're saying about your organization? And knowing who's already in the account allows you to tailor your messaging to potentially overcome that hurdle before it even happens. You know, Clarkson here, right? He was Aerotech, I was a Medics. I knew when Aerotech was in there, I knew some of the pitches they used, and I'm sure Clark probably knew some of the stuff Medics used from pitches wise. I would craft my messaging to make sure I got ahead of a potential prospect's objections before they even brought it up, because I knew what Aerotech was saying within those meetings when they're sitting down with those individuals. And the ABC, right? We'll cover this now as actually we'll jump ahead with this. So I look at A, B's, and C's as based on your revenue projection for the account. So simple formula here, as you can see on your screen, number of openings, time your average fill rate, times the average placement fee. So as you, for example, 10 openings, if your average fill rate is 30%, right, over the course of the year, I'm going to get 10 opportunities to fill positions. My average fill rate's 30%. I'm going to end up filling 3 roles. Average placement fee, 20K. That account, how I would view it as, is a 60K revenue projection account. And what you want to do is, if you can see with the revenue goal, and this again within that Notion document, you can simply put in your numbers. It'll calculate the rest for you. But how I judge an A is any account that holds 10% or more of my goal within that one account. So for the example I gave here with 60K, as you can see on your screen, right? An A account on a 500K or 500K revenue would be 50K, would be the 10%. This one's at 60K, I would consider an A account. You might say on the other side, hey, that number, the 150, why is it cap out there? Why can't it go higher? Well, that's 30% for those who are great at math, which I'm not. But that's 30%. What I think is so important is if you have an account that's bringing in over 30% of your business, one, awesome, right? You're doing a fantastic job within that account. People must love you. You're more likely not in a variety of different groups. that should be celebrated. But on the flip side, it should be a bit of caution for you as well, because I'm seeing that as, wow, this account is bringing in 40% of my revenue. What if they decide tomorrow, they bring in new HR, they bring in new leadership, they lose funding, whatever it is, and they just said, hey, we're not going to use you anymore. Just like that, overnight, 40% of your revenue is gone. And if you're not out there constantly prospecting and looking for potential replacements, you're going to have a really, really tough year. I know for me, for example, one of my biggest accounts here was a company called Fresenius Kabi. They had about 30% of my revenue was in there. And unfortunately, it was Valentine's Day of 2019, and they lost a big client. And as a result, they had to freeze everything. So I went from 35% of my revenue, the goal I had for the year, disappeared literally overnight. It was a sickening feeling, right? One, because the people that were working there, unfortunately, had to be let go. And two, I had to go out and find a replacement for them. And that was a scary proposition. And so I vowed to myself, if I ever got to that number, that 30%, I would be cautious of that and know I either need to find a bunch of B accounts or a couple A's to make up for the possibility that this A account could go away overnight. As you continue to work your way down, right, B accounts 5 to 10%, and then C accounts 1 to 5%. I think it's really important, though, to have a healthy mix. If you're looking at a territory plan and it's filled with nothing but A's, you might think to yourself, great, my territory plan is loaded with nothing but A accounts. I'm going to be bringing in twice as much of my quota. I'm going to double my revenue, whatever it is. More likely than not, though, those A accounts, those are the harder ones to get into. They take a little bit more time. They take a little bit more effort. Maybe there's a little bit more red tape. Now, the upside is certainly worth it, but it's going to take some time. Versus the C accounts, right? The ones that might use you a couple times a year that maybe you got a great relationship with, but they're like, look, we're a small little company. We may hire once, twice. We'll use you then. You need to have a combination of both. And what I tell everyone I work with, my clients from a metaphor perspective, is I look at my A, B, and C's like someone trying to fill a jar with rocks, gravel, and sand. Your rocks are your A's, right? Like I said, they're the hardest ones to move, but they take up the most space. But if you fill the jar with nothing but A's, you're going to have cracks in there. There's going to be gaps within there. If you fill in the B's, great, you fill up a little bit more, but you need your C's. Your C's are your sand. Those are the ones that fill in all the cracks, and from top to bottom, that thing is airtight. And those C's are sometimes the difference between you hitting quarter club, hitting president's club, hitting company goals, or not. Because if you're neglecting those, it can end up hurting you in the long run. The other thing too, this does adjust on a year-to-year basis. So maybe this year your goal is $500,000, and next year it's 1 million. So what was once an A now becomes a B account because it's adjusting with it. And that's okay. All that needs to tell you is that, hey, I need to step up my game and start going for bigger and bigger whales in order to hit the goals that I've set out for myself at the beginning of the year. So we've got the top 25, next 25, we've got it completed, right? We've got our targets selected. The thing to notate though is this is fluid, right? We are constantly evaluating who we're going after, because at the end of the day, we've all got the same amount of minutes and hours in the day. And I know it's cliche to say that, but it's even more true in our business, where speed and efficiency is one of the more prized possessions we have. And if you're wasting your time on a bad account, you are saying no to the possibility of prospecting into a great account. And you need to constantly evaluate, am I spending my time wisely with this one when I could be prospecting into this one? And that's why I think doing things like a quarter review of your accounts is so crucial. It can identify that, wow, I've spent hours prospecting in this account, and I come to find out that their rates are half of what I usually do, or there's 20 competitors in there, or they have a VMS place and we don't do that in my company, right? All these things, if that's the case, get them out. Replace them with a company that, quite frankly, deserves your time. So I think as salespeople, we sometimes think, oh, we need to listen to whatever the customer says. Like every customer can be our customer. That's not true. Like you shouldn't be going after every customer, because not every customer will want to work with you, and you shouldn't want to work with every customer because they might not be the right fit for you. That's okay. I'd rather find that out sooner in the process, because that allows me to move them out and focus on someone else that is a better fit. And as a result, I'm going to win more business. Now, as we're going through this progression, right, we've set a territory plan. Again, it is fluid, but we've got that set up. And now it's time to set specific goals within each account. What we want to do with that is using an account focus doc, which is this. This is something I would created every quarter. I had my 50 accounts, and then within those 50, I'm creating very specific goals that I want to accomplish over the next 90 days. And they are smart goals, right? So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and then time bound. They're naturally time bound because I want to get this done by the end of the quarter. And then I want to be as hyper specific as I can, right? And I got some examples on there, such as I want to get out to lunch with a specific manager. You may also, going back to the example of you've got a territory plan filled with nothing but targets, you may have a very specific goal of, I want to identify 10 new contacts. I want to build out an org chart, and I want to get on 2 meetings, right? We don't have the names yet. We don't know who the individuals should be reaching out to, but I'm setting those specific goals in terms of 10 to 2 meetings to maybe at the end of the quarter, you want to break into the account. Great, set that goal up there. Why not? The key though with this is holding yourself accountable to this. With the clients I work with, I tell them, hey, put it on your calendar. Whether it's Monday morning or Friday afternoon, put a reoccurring calendar invite for yourself for 10 minutes. It shouldn't take you very long. You'll pull up this document real quick and see, what did I accomplish that I felt like would move the ball forward when it comes to either growing business within an already existing account or bringing in new business? Because that's what this is really designed to do. It's to hold yourself accountable based on goals you set that you said, hey, if I do these things, these smaller wins, right? Lunch with Jane, first meeting with a new VP, right? Notice on here, some of these things doesn't say break in the account. Like we all know that's the end goal, but you got to have little goals, little steps to get to that point. And by holding yourself accountable to knocking off those things, you will, as going back to the Seahawks Patriots, you'll actually get in the end zone unless you decide to run a slant. The other thing too, like I said, with the account focus doc is you should be aiming for about 70% completion. And while I know for me growing up, my parents would be happy with 70%. From a grade perspective, you should be pretty happy from this because the goals you set within your account focus doc should not be easy. These things are borderline stretch goals, right? Maybe even slightly above that as well. Because if at the end of the quarter you get there and you say, wow, I'm so great, I knocked off 100% of your goals, I would say to you, you set your sights way too low. You should have pushed yourself a little bit more. You should have stretched a little bit more. You should have set a little higher, loftier goals, because if you're able to knock it off that easily, they probably weren't the worthwhile goals that are needed to grow your book of business. Now, on the flip side, what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to have, at the end of the quarter, say 30% of the goals completed. Because what that means is, hey, one, you're a badass. You set extremely far stretch goals, but maybe it's time to bring it back a little bit. Like, let's make it a little bit more realistic to actually accomplish, because what we don't want to have happen is get the end of the quarter and feel so demotivated because we didn't knock off all those goals. It might just be put out the goals that are too far out there, too far stretched, and we need to readjust as a result of that. You should have goals too, going back to the territory, right, of targets, reactivates, and clients. You want a healthy mix of goals within each one. If you do this account focus doc and you realize, wow, I've got all these goals set up for my targets and almost none set up for your clients, that's not a good thing. We want to be spending time with our clients. We want to be building that relationship. We want to be asking for introductions, referrals. We want to grow that book of business. So again, this is just another way to do a quick overview and see where I'm missing some things or where I should be spending some more of my time on. And last, you see on here, pure accountability. It's the best way to get this done is to have someone accountable to it, right? And with clients I work with, it's one of the things I spend a lot of time on is, okay, what did we do from a goal perspective? And then what do we need to do over the next week to knock off some more goals, right? And then of course there's some game planning that occurs after that point. But you want to continually hold yourself accountable, and having a peer is one of the best ways. So quick recap, kind of about the halfway point here. So quick recap of what we've covered so far when it comes to a BD process and a sales system. We've created our ICP. We've identified accounts that fit the ICP. We're focusing on our top 50 highest ROI accounts. One of my new favorite ones, I made this one up, time to ROI, or TTR, right? The time I spend on each account is worth it because the ROI is so much higher. And last, we've created account-focused docs with specific goals. So if you're like me, it's like, great job, Keely. You've taught me some things on how to plan and all that stuff. But my main question is going to be now after all that is, how the hell do I turn these goals into accomplishments, right? It's one thing to set goals. Now it's time to actually take action. We need to go out and we actually need to do these things, do specific things in order to check off some of the goals we had set for ourselves. So we're going back to the metaphor of building a house, your territory / account focus doc, the bedrock, the foundation of your house. You've made that thing rock solid. It is now time to start building, as you see on the right side of your screen, a mansion on top of it. We're adding the scaffolding. We're going to start adding the siding, the roof. We get to start decorating interiorly, right? Like all the fun stuff that comes with building your own house. But again, it cannot be done unless we do a great job with the foundation. So with our outreach strategy, first thing I would say to look at when I'm talking with someone is, what have you tried? Whether it's email, cold calling, in-person drops, which maybe, obviously it wasn't a thing a few years ago. If you have the opportunity though, to get in front of somebody, to drop off some material and they're somewhat local and you can be efficient with it, meaning you can knock out a few targets or a few clients all in one day, never a bad idea. Because more likely than not, your competitors are not doing that. So just that little action alone will allow you to stand out. Can 360 calls, that's another opportunity when it comes to doing some business development. And then creative campaigns. One of my favorite things is creative campaigns, is coming up with themes, right? For example, coming up with St. Patty's Day. You might do a fun little creative campaign to your target accounts with something that have to do with a leprechaun, a pot of gold, right? Maybe the luck of the Irish will shine upon me and you'll actually meet with me because I've been trying for the last 7 months, right? Have fun with it when you're doing some of these creative campaign outreaches. The point though with this is, or with all this, I should say, is you need to have a process in place with your outbound. What you don't want to do, going back to the beginning slides, you don't want the spray and pray approach. You don't want to wake up every morning thinking, okay, well, what should I do with John Doe? What should I do with Jane Doe? Should I email him today? Should I call him today? Should I LinkedIn comment? Should I do this? Like, we need to eliminate that guesswork. You need to wake up every day knowing this is what I need to do based on the cadence I've built out for myself, because this person is at X part of the step in the process, and this is what I said I would do day in and day out. And that's what I want to kind of cover here, right? Outbound 2, it should not be a binary mindset. And what I mean by that is, and I've been guilty of it many times in my career, is thinking when I'm making outreach, it's either set meeting or failure. There was no in between in my mind. I thought every time I got someone on the phone for a cold call perspective, I either had to set the meeting or it was a bad call. And that was a terrible way of approaching business development, because ultimately, when I'm reaching out to prospects, there's more than one thing that should be front of mind. I might be reaching out to them simply to educate them, right? Going back to having hyper focus on my ICP, what's wrong with sending an industry article and saying, hey, came across this interesting drug discovery, wondering how it's going to have an effect on your business, right? I'm not talking hiring. I'm talking to them as a peer, right? I'm trying to educate them of some of the trends that's going on. And by a result, I'm positioning myself as someone who actually is staying involved with what's happening. Setting a meeting obviously is a goal, but it is not always the main goal. Sometimes you might be building a relationship. Other times you might just want to be gathering information. You might be calling in and trying to figure out, do they even use recruitment firms? Because if they don't, it's a very different sell than if they do. But the point is, do not go in thinking I either failed or I succeeded based on setting a meeting. You really should be going into all these opportunities as, hey, I'm seeking to understand their problems. And then from there, I'm seeing if I can maybe help them. And oh, by the way, as a result of helping them, I end up making a sale. But by going in seeking to understand, what you actually do is you listen. And I was guilty of it many times in my career. I thought, just got to set the meeting, just got to get the business. And prospects would say things that would just go through one ear and out the other. And I missed opportunities to actually have a genuine conversation, to actually learn what was keeping up, to actually learn what was happening within the business, because I was so focused on, I just got to set this meeting, and I missed everything else. So that's one of the big things I want to talk about from a mindset perspective, is make sure you do not have this binary mindset. So cadences, right? So going back to the account focused doc, maybe your goal was get on, as an example, right? Get on a meeting with the VP of IT. This is where having that plan is. This is going to take the guesswork out. This is going to stop you from waking up every morning and saying, what should I be doing from a BD perspective? Is having cadences to follow. A multi-channel is a must-have. It's not a nice-to-have, right? I talk to people. Some people love cold calling. Some people don't. Some people are great at crafting cold outreach via emails. Some people aren't. Some people are wizards on LinkedIn. Others are not. you cannot rely on only one channel because you want to meet your prospects where they want to be met. Some prospects, maybe they still do pick up the phone. Some prospects, maybe they never pick up the phone, but they do respond to emails. And then maybe the other prospect, they love to be on LinkedIn. They love getting direct messages. They love having conversations within there, but they never pick up the phone or they never respond to an email. If your cadence doesn't have every single channel built into there, you're going to miss out on the potential of connecting with your prospects where they want to be met at. And when you're creating the sequence, cadence, two interchangeable words, big thing to make sure is it better be at least 9 touches. I'm sure a lot of us have seen it, but I cannot reiterate this enough. Studies have shown that it takes at least 8 touches now. And I think the number is only going to continue to increase, especially with the advent of AI and some of the spam stuff that's coming through people's emails. 8 touches to get a meeting. Most reps, though, give up earlier in the process, usually around 3 or 4. So if you're creating a cadence yourself from scratch, you should at least start with 9. And you want to make sure you're following through with that, knowing, hey, it's okay in the beginning if I don't hear anything. It's okay in the beginning if they're not interested. I know that based on data, based on research and everything else, it will take me time to get them to actually acknowledge me, to listen to me, and then ultimately meet with me. I want to show a couple examples, right? In terms of different cadences you could try. So I've even added my own input in here in terms of like, you can use these cadences for companies that you think are worth targeting, right? This is what I would consider a much more elongated cadence. For example, right, you can see it's spread out over the course of 6 months. That's a long time. We obviously don't want to miss opportunity. If I'm targeting into a top 50 account, the reason why I'm spending my time there is I believe there's opportunity to be had. Maybe it's not today, maybe it's not tomorrow, but I think if I get in there, the payoff is going to be worth all the time I spent. And I might not use something like this because this is going to be spread out for an extremely long time versus this one. So this was, I give credit to this individual, his name is Sam Nelson, the Agogi sequence. He came back up with this in 2018. As you can see here, it's more aggressive and it gives you a breakdown in terms of manual email, LinkedIn follow, and everything to follow. What I hope to accomplish, I should say, with showing you guys these different cadences is to either start generating ideas or just screenshot them and start using them yourself. The goal, though, with these things is, again, take the guesswork out of your business development. Do not wake up like I did every morning and think, what should I be doing? You need to eliminate that because by putting something like this in place, and I know hopefully he's on here, Kevin is on here as well, but if you're having to think, what should I be doing from a cadence perspective? You're burning up, is this phrase he loves to use, you're burning up brain calories. You're wasting the valuable resources, the creativity you have just on a process. You don't want that. The creativity, the fun part of sales, all that should be with the messaging, should be on the discovery meeting, should be in the follow-up when you're trying to push for a candidate that you think would fill the role perfectly, right? That's where you want to be spending your high brain activity, not on, hey, what should I be doing? Should I make a phone call today? Should I be sending an email? I'm not quite sure, right? Do that enough times and it leads to paralysis by analysis as well. I see in the chat real quick, I'm gonna take a pause. I do want to address this, right? I struggle a bit with cadences and touching them 9 times. I'm paranoid they think I'm bugging them or annoying them. This is for biz dev. Can't I'll bug the piss out of. Fair enough, Anthony. I love this question. I get this one a lot, right? And I've used this metaphor and it seems to hit home with a lot of people. If you were, let's just say you went to the doctor's office, right? And the doctor was like, I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I'll phone you afterwards and I'll let you know what your problem is, right? Whether you're having headaches, doesn't really matter, right? Is the doctor being annoying by reaching out to you a few times to get a hold of you to let you know what's going on? No. 1, the doctor's doing his job. 2, the doctor's goal is to help you. You have a problem. He has a solution. The same applies for you, Anthony, right here, right? You're not being annoying. You're being pleasantly persistent because you believe, based on the research you've done, you have a hyper focus on your ICP, you know what's going on within the company. You are not just some random vendor. You have a solution to their problem and you are reaching out to see if you can help them. You're not annoying them. It may feel like in the beginning to them, but with the right messaging, you can let them see you are different. You are there to help them. You're not there to pitch them, to sell them, right? Going back to what I said with like cold calls and that binary mindset, right? You're seeking to understand. One of the most powerful things you can do in sales is to tell somebody, I'm not the right fit. You know what? Based on what you're telling me, I'm not your guy. I had happened last week for my own personal business. I was speaking to an individual. I wasn't the right person. You know who it was? Clark Wilcox. And I said, hey, go talk to Clark. He's your guy. But I wouldn't have known that if I went in that conversation thinking like, okay, I just want to sell this individual. No, I want to seek to understand. So going back to, again, your point, Anthony, right? Hey, you're not bugging them. You're seeking to help them. Just like a doctor would seek to bother you, right? Call you multiple times because they have a solution to your problem. So, but I appreciate that. I mean, I'll be honest, even sometimes I get a little paranoid, like, oh man, do I need to follow up this person again? And I have to have that internal monologue with myself. And I say, no, kid, like, you firmly believe you have a solution to help with their problem. And I want to reach out and let them know that. And by not doing that, if I let that negative speak get into my mind, I'm doing them a disservice, right? I'm not being a partner to them. I'm really, quite frankly, like I'm denying them the opportunity to make their lives better. So I think having that reframe will really help when it comes to your outreach. Last one would be, it says on here, guys, right? This is the most aggressive sequence. One of the ones I've seen called a triple tap, right? You have my own thoughts in there too. One of the biggest challenges with this one, outside the sheer amount, is just ensuring you deliver value with each touch. I think that's a really important piece as you're looking at these cadences to take away is don't feel like you have to get to 14, 17, all the different examples in there. Like, again, shoot for maybe 9, 10 tops. Once you do that, though, what you really need to focus on next is your messaging. And with each touch, am I delivering value to the conversation? If I'm going, hey, just following up, or hey, just checking in, right? If your email starts with that, do yourself a favor, delete it. Do not use that. Because I get those too, and I do it every time. If I see it in the first line, I'm always deleting it. Because we all know, we've all been there. What's the next line after that? You're getting pitch slapped. Someone's going to pitch you right after that point. We all know that. Prospects have been trained on it as well. So you need to ensure that your messaging delivers value with each touch. Again, creating a sequence, extremely hard to do from scratch. But if you're doing it, look at the different channels, right? As I said, it's got to be multi-channel. And I'm a fervent believer of having a max of 2 touches in a row with the same channel. So maybe day 1, you make a call. Day 3, you make a call. Day 5, send an email, right? Do a LinkedIn, do something different. Don't continue to only prospect through one channel day in and day out because you'll inevitably not get anywhere. So closing thoughts, we're at 12 minutes. So, for Q&A at the end here, but closing thoughts for myself, right? And hopefully this is helpful. This is how I would view BD, right? This is very process oriented. Hopefully it's generated some ideas for everyone in here, but what I want to leave you guys with is small wins are important, like extremely important. Going back to the example I gave in the beginning of having a terrible start to my career, I at least did look at the small wins, right? I forget who it was, and forgive me, whoever started off this call saying like I had someone back out of a final interview. Look, that sucks. There's no other 2 ways around it. But guess what? It also means you found a badass candidate. You found someone who got to the final round. That is a small win. Granted, we didn't get the big one we wanted. We didn't get the payoff we wanted as a result of that, but it's a small win. You did a great job. You found a candidate that they love, and you got them to the final stage. Things just didn't work out your way. But if you stack up enough small wins, it will lead to those bigger wins. And then just from a human psychological perspective, progress is life's greatest motivator. Harvard research, they've done a bunch of studies. I'm sure there's other ones that have done it as well. But when it comes to just motivation, seeing progress will get you to come back day in and day out, right? Use the example of maybe you wanted to go to the gym, you wanted to get stronger. And week 1, you were maybe lifting 50 pounds. Week 2, you're lifting 52, right? Not a huge difference, 2-pound difference, but you see that progress. That's a small win. And it's going to motivate you to want to come back the next week to the gym and the next week to the gym. It's going to keep stacking over and over again. And you're going to look back and realize, wow, I was at 50, 6 months later, I'm at 100 pounds. I made a lift now as a result of this. I might not have noticed it in the moment, but these small wins led to this big win. I think it's just so important that you look at your week and hell, even your day. You get to the end of the day, and you might feel like, wow, I had a rough day. There's almost always a small win you can find that'll motivate you to come back the next day to try to be a little bit better. And lastly, a goal without a plan is a dream, right? Take one thing from today's talk. I don't believe like if you're starting from scratch, right, it would be borderline crazy to take all this stuff and think you're going to be able to implement it all tomorrow. Because what's going to happen is you're going to try. It's going to be extremely hard. You're more likely going to fail, and you're going to be demotivated, and you're not going to do it. So I'd rather you take one thing, one small thing from today, and start doing it tomorrow. And then guess what? A week from now, 2 weeks from now, take another one thing, whether small or not, add it into it. And what you realize as you continue to do that, what started off as a new thing becomes habit, and you bring in another new thing, a small thing you add into it. And before you know it, you've created this process, this system that you don't even have to think about anymore. It becomes natural to you. But the way to do it is by implementing in small steps over time. That's all I got. That wraps it up for me in terms of what I got presentation wise. So I guess if there's any questions, like fire them away.
A few questions. Definitely thank you for that, man. That was just like actionable insight nonstop. Throw a quick emoji on your thoughts on this talk from Keely while I look at the questions real quick. All right, first question. What does your talk track look like when you do an in-person drop?
A talk track. Yeah. So it depends, right? I think if you're going the creative campaign route, I'm maybe I didn't show a great job on this talk because I was a little bit nervous, but I'm like a goofy, like Ben knows, we were on the call before this. Like I like to have fun. I like to have a ton of fun with everything that I do. So if I'm going in with, say, some sort of creative campaign, I'll use the example of St. Patty's Day because I did this a couple years ago. I walked into businesses holding a giant leprechaun. It was this like goofy little thing. And I would hand it over. I'd say, hey, I'm open to talk to so and so, and hopefully the luck of the Irish is shining upon me because I've tried for the last 3 months and I can't get in front of somebody. I don't know what's going to take, but I'll go out and I'll find a pot of gold if that's what it takes to get a meeting with this individual, right? Like something like that. Like have some fun with it, right? Like you, I can't tell somebody to like be me because that doesn't work. Like you got to be you and you got to fit with what works with your style. I think though, if you're looking at it just from a like best practices, if you're going creative, have fun with it, be unique, be human, right? Like don't be a robot. If you're going the more the business route, if you're the more the serious one, like, hey, this isn't your style, that's cool. Come in though with like value. Come in, be prepared to talk about how you feel you can help them out, what you know about their company, whatever it is. So that way you're not just in there saying, hey, I want to meet with somebody and see if we can fill some roles. Like, no, I'd be coming there saying, hey, based on some of the research I've done, I've noticed that you guys are going through this recent merger. I know in my experience, when that happens, there tends to be employee turnover, which leads to unexpected positions opening. And I know with some of my clients, that's happened in the past, which resulted in them losing out on hitting their targets, doing this, this, and this, right? So it's ultimately, I just did it naturally, but it's pain, agitate, solution is kind of the framework you're working with within there.
Man, if you're looking at watching this again, definitely, go VIP and get the replays. Just got a thank you from Scotland over there.
Hey, Scotland. That's cool. I told you, like, I told Ben, like, after his podcast aired, I talked to someone in Sweden. So, like, talk about a global reach. Pretty impressive stuff.
All right, got another question. Do you use any automation for keeping consistent emails based on your ideal cadence? If so, what have you found works with the decision tree of response/no response?
So automation, I've used Apollo. I like Apollo. I know if you're going, I guess this is an email, so I guess technically LinkedIn. I know Clark talked about it earlier in the week. Dripify is a great tool to have as well, but Apollo's been probably my go-to. I think it has some, I don't know if the word smart technology, but obviously if they respond, it can stop the sequence. I'm a big fan of that. I also think though, when it comes to your like truly high value targets, the ones that you feel like, hey, I need to get in front of these people, it's worth taking a few extra minutes to craft up a specific message to that individual because it will resonate much more than some sort of generic message that they're getting from your competitors.
Awesome. For cold calling CEOs, what is the recommended time of the day?
Um, so I mean, studies have said that the best time to call them is before 8 and after 5, just because one, the gatekeeper is primarily not there, so you might have a better chance of getting them on the phone, and two, people within that position tend to be in the office a little bit earlier and also tend to be a little bit later, so it's better to catch them. I would say probably the best times in the morning, just because, and think about it from your own perspective too. As the day goes on, you're hit with so many things, right? Whether that's good things or bad things, it takes up a lot of your willpower, your brain power, right? To even pay attention. By the end of the day, you're exhausted. Think of it from a C-suite perspective too. They're going through the same thing themselves. So if you're catching them at the end of the day at 5:30, 6 o'clock, they might not be in the right mindset or mind frame to even hear what you're saying. Versus the morning, they're fresh, they're starting their day out. You might have a better opportunity to actually resonate with them.
Awesome. And real quick, for those that wanted to download I think it's the Notion page, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I just put up the talk page up there, and you can see that in the media. So that
Sweet.
way you can definitely download that.
Yeah, I mean, and I forgot to add, I guess there was more slides. So it's like, hey guys, if you do want to get in touch with me, I am on LinkedIn, right? I'm so process focused, guys. I just want to talk about process, not about myself. But I'm on LinkedIn every day. I post every day. It's around sales,
Yeah,
specifically within the recruiting space. So connect with me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. Love to have a conversation. That QR code there too, as well. If you want to schedule a call, happy to get on a call with you, talk through what your current BD process is, and see ways to potentially improve it. And then lastly, I do have a newsletter too. It's on my LinkedIn page. Again, just longer form content. LinkedIn obviously doesn't love me putting up links on there, but I usually will do longer form pieces based on what I'm posting on LinkedIn.
awesome. Two more questions just popped through, and
Yep.
definitely give Keely a follow on LinkedIn. What follow-up spiel do you recommend instead of the typical checking in follow-up? Would love to get ideas of your creative outreach. Thank you for this masterclass.
Yeah. Without the other, so instead of checking in, following up, right, one of my favorite things to do is the educate piece is to stay ingrained with what's happening within their industry. And I think I talked about it earlier in the call was around sending articles, whether it's podcasts, like I'm working with a client right now. They sent a podcast over to a prospect that they hadn't heard of in months. They're like, I couldn't get a hold. I'm like, all right, let's yeah, I call it sharpen your saw, right? Let's spend some time to learn about our industry and what would resonate with them. And he's within the AI space. So it's like software engineers and stuff. He found a great podcast around that topic and he sent it to a prospect. And the prospect responded saying, hey, thanks so much for sharing. I'll give it a listen, which is great, right? That's step one though. But you just open the door. You have now a commonality to talk about where you could continue to listen to those podcasts yourself because it's twofold, right? One, you're getting smarter about your industry. You're staying in tune with what's happening. Second, you don't have reasons to reach out to that person outside of, hey, can I fill your roles? Right? You can reach out and say, hey, this great podcast, right? Like Ben just had this great guest, like using Ben, right? Ben just had this great guest on. Love what they said about this. Did you get a chance to check it out? What are your thoughts, right? Or how do you think this is going to impact your industry? Or what did you implement from that podcast, right? Like you're not talking to them as a peer, not as someone who's just coming there, hands out, saying, hey, can I have some positions?
Awesome. How do you keep track of what step is next after the email automation?
It tells you it's
What,
time.
yeah,
I would say that goes back to like, how do you keep track? So the cadences, right? I know I showed those screens, but I'll try to even get a little bit more deeper with this. If you have a CRM that can actually keep track of these things for yourself, great. I was, back in my day, when I started out in 2015, we had Bullhorn, and Bullhorn did not have like smart logic where you can lay out a cadence. I literally had my cadence printed out, hung up behind my desk, and then I would have to task out what I need to do with everybody. So task one was phone call, task two was email, task three was this. And when I get to a prospect and I'd go through whatever task, because it would tell me, hey, Keely, send this email. I'd send an email and say task four. And if I wasn't sure, I'd look, oh yeah, task five is LinkedIn connection request. So I'd just set that task for the next day or whenever it was within my cadence to hold myself accountable to actually follow through on it.
awesome. All right. Any last questions from anybody? Man, this has been epic. Well, Keely, I just want to say thank you so much. Throw a quick like a thanks emoji in the chat. And you said it perfectly. Like it's these systems that are in place. They're not the funnest things to talk about, but when it comes down to the basics and actual success, they're one of the most important things. So definitely thank you for showcasing the success. Thank you for sharing. And this was absolutely epic. And I know personally, once again, I got to go back and rewatch this.
Well, thanks for having me. And obviously thank you everyone that took time out of your day to come listen to me speak, right? Like I said at the top of the call with my background, I've been coaching now almost 15 years. And I tell every one of my clients like that I work with, I thank them because I couldn't do what I love without them. And so I couldn't do today without you guys. Like I couldn't teach, I couldn't coach because if no one showed up, I wouldn't be teaching anybody anything. So thank you all for coming and spending some time out of your day with me.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on day 4 of the Recruiting Growth Summit. One more day left. Tomorrow is going to be absolutely epic. We have Will McGee talking about making productizing your business. And then we have the big biller panel. We have Rich Rosen, Danny Cahill and Andrea talking about how to like really just sharing what they're doing to be like top $1 million billers. So make sure to tune in for that. All right, guys. See you later. Thank you.